Item E is the public comment portion of the meeting. Is there anybody from the public that would like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a comment.
Okay. And just a reminder, under the Brown Act, it's still 3 minutes.
Right.
Okay. Please go to the lectern. Thank you. And please state your name before we start.
My name is Judy Brown.
Okay.
I want to make a comment to each and every one on the hospital board. I want you all to know that the auxiliary is 100% behind Mr. McGlue. He is always here when we need him, and sometimes he's here 24/7, even though he has a family he could be spending time with. He puts the hospital and the community first. Some other hospitals would love to have him because he cares about people. He's not here for the money. If that was the case, he would have left a long time ago. Mr. McGlue's a hardworking man. You tabled his raise at, what, 3% or so? Show him the respect he needs and give him the raise.
Thank you, Judy. Is there any other public comment? Ma'am, did you have a comment? No? Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you, Judy. Item F is the consent portion of the meeting, and this is routine, non-controversial stuff that's approved by the board. The only one quick correction to last month's minutes is that it said Scott was on the telephone. He was actually here. Oh well, that's the only thing that I saw. So just so noted, we don't need to pull that.
I move we accept the consent agendas.
Okay. Just being moved by Director Cass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Director Bush. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda has passed. Reports, Foundation, Ms. Hess, welcome.
Good evening. We're going to do some stuff a little different tonight. First, I want to let you know that our diabetic class for July and August is full, and we actually have 6 people on a waiting list, so we're going to look to see how we can fund a 3rd class, so that's great news. The next I want to do is pass out the River Rhythms information, and as you know, last year we started taking River Rhythms over from the Cultural and Education Foundation group for scholarships. So we actually have a first recipient here tonight that we would like to give him his scholarship, if Peyton doesn't mind coming up. And if I can have the board that's available, if you don't mind coming up. Hi. I just want to say on behalf of the Kern Valley Hospital Foundation, with the helps of the Pink Ladies at River Rhythms, that we are awarding Peyton Jones a $1,000 scholarship.
Let her get our picture. This is your payment for getting the check. You got us suffer to sing the blues.
And that's our report.
Thanks for promising. I can't.
Congratulations.
That's my next item.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you, Debbie. Is there any other questions for Debbie before we move on?
Yeah, on the River Rhythms, the Southside Chicago Blues, Jeff Dale, is that the physical therapist?
No.
Okay.
It's kind of a distant picture.
Here's the giveaway.
Did you want to talk about the
But he knows Emmylou Harris.
current health system?
If he had a beer in his hand and a marmalade under him, he'd knows.
Okay, do it next one.
Anything else for Debbie before we move on? Okay. Auxiliary report, Cindy Rubin, welcome.
Oh, good evening. First of all, the auxiliary wants to thank the hospital very much for letting us have our installation, our 51st installation here. The meal was awesome. I think everybody had a really good time. And like I said, the food was just, it was great. We got a few new applications, so hopefully we'll get some new good volunteers out of them. And we're still doing our cleanups on Wednesdays at the thrift store from about about 8 in the morning till about 12 noon, they're down there working. Thrift store is doing great. We're getting, I don't know, umpteen donations. Like, donations are coming in hand over fist like you wouldn't believe. We don't even know where they're coming from. So, Mr. McGlue, we really need to discuss a larger building.
We have space across the street.
The gift shop is doing good too. We're now selling ice cream for 50 cents in the gift shop. We have ice cream bars, ice cream sandwiches, and fudgesicles, and she's looking into getting some drumsticks.
Can I request a recess?
And now everyone is just getting ready and settling into their offices for a new year. And that's all I have.
Very good. Thanks for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Cindy?
Life's not fair.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Moving on to the medical staff report, Dr. Finstad, Chief of Staff.
Thank you. The Emergency Department Committee met on June 19th. The committee reviewed monthly and quarterly reports, including decision to admit studies, risk and benefits of transfer study, emergency department quality measures, and blood culture analysis. They reviewed and approved some revisions to the privilege form for emergency department physicians. The committee also was briefed on the opioid safe hospital self-assessment. And so that's an assessment from the state that the emergency department is starting to gather data on about opioid prescribing, statistics and things to help us better get a handle on things, and see how things are going and see what kind of changes or improvements could be made. The Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee met on June 21st. We approved new consent forms for thrombolytics for strokes and heart attacks. We also approved the competency packet for the procedural sedation, which is when somebody comes in and gets medication to allow a procedure to take place, so they'll be more comfortable. That can be a pretty complicated, high-risk process, and the provider competency packet was approved. They also reviewed and approved a number of policies which were on the consent agenda tonight, and then reviewed their monthly and quarterly reports, including blood usage, blood culture, medication usage, medication shortages and restraints. The Medical Executive Committee met on June 25th. We reviewed and approved an appointment for a teleradiologist. Also reviewed the above-mentioned policies and procedures and competency packets that were passed into other committees. And then we reviewed our regular reports, including admit times, plan of corrections, delinquency rate, and the imaging on call, our radiology, quarterly quality assessment reports. And unless there's any questions, that's the end of my report.
Okay, are there any questions for Dr. Finstad? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Dr. Finstad. Moving on to item 4 is the CEO report. Mr. McGlue.
Okay, thank you. Very pleased to announce that the hospital has submitted our financial application to the Cal OES, it's the California Office of Emergency Services, and FEMA for a $19,282,000 grant that would basically cover our seismic requirements in upgrading the hospital, to get us beyond 2030. As I've talked about in prior meetings, this is money that were made available from the federal government through the state. Approximately $750 million was presented to the state, primarily as hazard mitigation funds, as a result of, it was primarily meant for the big 3 counties that were impacted by the fires a year ago. But the application basically allowed for non-designated counties to participate. As part of our application process, we identified obviously some of the issues and problems that we developed as a result of the Erskine fire, even though there wasn't enough financial damage from the Erskine fire to qualify as a FEMA event. And so, but we certainly utilize that as a part of our justification as to why funds needed here. I want to personally thank Bob Easterday for the tremendous effort he made. He's been literally working on this thing for 2.5 months. You know, it's been a process. Just understanding the whole FEMA application process, it's extremely detailed.
It was a pretty extensive application.
It was. It's probably a binder about this thick, 14 chapters. And so we feel very confident that the application that we submitted is meets the requirements, you know, that were presented throughout the process. The benefit cost analysis and so forth had a minimum threshold of 1. I think we were at 3.5 or somewhere in that range. So 3.5 times the benefit of the cost, you know, so certainly justifying the expenditure. That is out the door, and it's FedExed out, and so we are hopeful that with the speed that this has gone so far, that the review processes will, you know, be relatively short. The good part is obviously FEMA is not going to get involved. The state is going to make all the decisions. So this is the time now that we have officially submitted the paperwork to the state that we will be reaching out to Shannon Grove and to Devin Mathis to begin maybe lobbying on our behalf, just to kind of let them know the need here in our community for this and what it means to us. And so obviously any board members that would certainly like to do that, we would love to have that as well. And we'll make those contact information available to. We just received notice that we have successfully got approval on our plan of correction for the life safety portion of the SNF survey that was done a month or so ago. And so we're happy that the teams have been working on that. A lot of them has already been corrected. And so, you know, obviously we do that literally as soon as the survey starts, when we identify these issues and these little deficiencies. And so we like to jump on them right away. So just pleased to have official notification that they've accepted it. We are, one of the issues again in talking about SNF, you know, that we've talked about for several meetings now. Obviously one of the biggest issues we've had, obviously, as we've talked, was in regards to access to CNAs and so forth. And so Mark and I have been kind of working towards trying to get a CNA program going again here. Mark has actually submitted for a grant request, which actually I think he's already done that, correct? And so we've been working on trying to find an instructor, and so I'm going to take a quick diversion in my report right now and just let Mark kind of share with you where he's at and what we're doing.
Do you want me to share that during my report, or do you want to?
Yeah, it's up to you. You know, just like I said, I think you know, one of the obviously issues for us is to make sure that we've got staff, and that's been a limiter for us.
We've secured.
Can you go up to the? Thank you.
We have secured an instructor. We're in the process of putting together the application, which includes 5 or 6 policies, several attestations. The grant is roughly $2,000 grant. It's not a lot of money, but it will help cover a lot of the cost of getting the groundwork laid out. The nice thing about our program is we don't have to be saddled by a semester or a particular time frame. We can actually offer the course when we want, and so we'll go through all the hoops that Title 22 requires, and we'll get that thing going. I have to have the application submitted by September 30th. We should be able, or we need to get the approval for the program by December to meet all the grant requirements. Yeah. And then for the final piece of that grant, we have to have a program started within 3 months of the approval, I believe. So that's where we're at with that, and hopefully that'll happen. Like I said, I did interview and meet with a CNA instructor, and she was very excited about wanting to participate. So
and she's actually been a part of the CNA training program that we've had going on for a number, and Sarah Close has actually had going on for quite some time. So she's very familiar. Yes.
where the grant, where are you applying for the grant? Who's giving you money?
The grant was a California Association of Healthcare Facilities, CAHF. Was that what, or was it?
QCHF,
the-
QCHF, yeah.
QCHF, sorry.
Too many
And
grants.
then, so you're doing an application, 2 applications then? One for the grant and one for the program?
No,
Yes.
no, the grant is for the program.
Well, there's an application we make to the state for the program, and then.
Right, right.
Okay, and then which state group has to approve this program?
Oh, the
Program,
CNA board.
CNA board.
The CNA board will
has
approve
to
the application for the training program.
The training program.
Right.
And what has been the problem, why has there been a delay all this time? Because I know you've tried to have one before, but the state didn't approve it, or they, so why is this gonna be different, or is it the same group you're applying to?
I think that that's a hard question to answer. I'm gonna leave it at that. I can't answer that specifically, I don't think, at this
It's the
time.
same group that you're applying to, though?
Yes.
That you
Yeah.
did before,
That's correct.
but this time you're.
The grant portion is new.
The grant
Grant portion is new. The application to the state board is not new.
Part of the problem is because there is such a shortage statewide, I think they are trying to incentivize hospitals to start doing their own programs. As a matter of fact, we met with Ridgecrest just yesterday,
Yeah.
and they are actually going
Fred
after a
Hawkins.
CNA program themselves, even though they got Syracuse in town as well, just because they can't rely on them to produce, again, because they have to have a certain threshold financially. You know, they need anywhere from 10 to 15 students in there. Well, if they don't get them, they don't hold a class. And
The
then-
short
then we
answer,
don't have
Debbie,
CNAs.
for that is we didn't want to be in competition with Syracuse. Syracuse can't seem to come up with educators that can work within their scheduling guidelines. And so for us, we can work around someone's schedule to be the instructor for that program and design our own program. And that's really why we're doing it the way we're doing it. Yeah, Syracuse is having challenges getting instructors, so.
Thank you.
Does that answer the question? As good as I could.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Also, we've just recently executed an agreement with Kindred Hospice, which I think I brought up about last meeting before, you know, of trying to, you know, again, we have Optimum right now, and so obviously having access for other sources of patients that come in will certainly help us census-wise. I'm actually also meeting with a third hospice agency, which is Ararat Hospice Care in Bakersfield. Have approached us about possibly doing a program.
That's
up
all
here.
part of the marketing for the SNF.
Yes, these are just kind of some of the points, just talking about what's going on with that, because it's been such an issue that's come up. And so anyway, that's in process. So hopefully that we'll begin seeing some more patients showing up there. There has been a lot more focused energy on building census down there. I'm having weekly meetings now with staff. We had a marketing meeting just the other day to talk about, you know, how we kind of, I don't want to say rebrand in a way, you know, the SNF, but to be able to show the quality of life that goes on in there, the tremendous work that's going on with all of the activities that we do there, and that, you know, it's not just someone comes in and they're in there in 4 walls and stuff like that. They actually have a life, and a lot of people don't know that, and so, and they don't find out until sometimes that they come in here and actually tour, and then all of a sudden they say, oh my God, this is wonderful, you know, and so forth. But the point is, we have not really done a great job of educating the community to that and the benefits of that, and so that's going to be happening. You're going to be seeing a lot more that comes out, you know, through various medias to get credit for the work that's being done down, the great work, both from a care perspective as well as the activities and so forth. And you know, people want to go someplace where they you know are have a life and can get up and do things and participate and, you know, and those kinds of things. And so we've had some really good meetings on that, and so that's going to be a main focus going forward from here. Just three other pieces of kind of a list, some legislative issues. Update on the SB 227, which was the nurse staffing ratio bill, or staffing bill. That has been amended, I'm pleased to say. The Hospital Association is still opposed to it, primarily because we still believe it's duplicative from the perspective that the law already, the regulations already allow for the state, the hospital, and CDPH to fine a hospital if you don't meet the requirements. But what they have done is, again, before it was $30,000 fine for the first violation and $60,000 every time after that. That has been dropped to $15,000 and $30,000. Before that, those totals wouldn't reset until the 6th year. So you had to go through 6 years of $60,000 before it would reset. Now it's 3 years. The one big piece that they did add to the legislation is to now allow CDPH to assess uncontrollable or unforeseeable events. And so if a nurse calls in sick and the hospital's made attempts to try and restaff that position, you will not get fined. And so that's really what the hospitals were most concerned about, because a lot of times we don't know until just before shift that, you know, someone is called out sick. You can't find somebody, especially in the rural hospitals. It's very difficult. And so this was the concern, is that we were going to get fined when there was not a darn thing we could do about that. And so that has now been built into the bill. And so clearly it has certainly made it less tenable for us, you know, from a financial perspective. But I think, you know, again, allowing CDPH to make those calls, you know, which they've always had the ability to do, was certainly helpful. And so we're appreciative to. We've written letters and contacted our legislators and so forth on this, and it was a pretty big groundswell of support from all the hospitals to try and get this changed. And so, like I said, we're still hopeful that the thing will be defeated. It was a year ago when it was proposed by the same author, and it was vetoed by the governor. It was unfortunately approved by the Assembly and the Senate, but vetoed by the governor. I don't know at this point how the current governor will decide on that. But at least we have some of the protections built in, so it won't be so bad. AB 1611, which is the surprise billing, that is one that's been getting a lot of attention here. A lot of this goes, physicians, a lot of hospitals will contract with physician groups who then don't sign up with health plans or whatever, and so patients get billed exorbitant out of network rates and so forth, so they end up having this payment issues, and so this is a means to try and combat that.
I'm sorry, Tim, did you call it surprise?
Surprise
billing?
Yes. Yeah, because it's like the surprise, the bill shows up at your door and you find out you owe $20,000 instead of $500. And so there are some issues that are still being worked out on that bill as it relates. They want to create a default rate that would be reimbursed and so forth. And so there's still some more stuff coming through on this one. I'll just keep you updated. But this is one that it's a patient protection bill. And so but we just want to make sure that it's done in such a way that it's fair for everybody. So, and the other was a federal bill. And it's called the area. It's an adjustment that's being proposed, I believe, to Medicare Compensation's Area Wage Index one. And this is, you know, again, recognizing, and I don't know if there's political connotations to this or not, but the impact is going to hit California the hardest. They're looking at this as probably going to take about $100 million of federal reimbursement away from the state and trying to push it to the lower paid states back east and so forth. And so this one is being vigorously fought by the Hospital Association. And like I said, it's, you know, we've been contacting Representative McCarthy's office and so forth. We've all been getting like calls at least every other day to continue to make phone calls and stuff like this, you know, to them and state the case and so forth. So which we've been participating on. So not sure how this one's going to come down. It is getting. I think there was a groundswell of support from the California legislative group. At least there was 42 assembly members who signed on to support California's, the Hospital Association's position on the bill, which was huge. And so, you know, again, we're continuing to that battle. So that one is you know, can hurt California in the long run from a reimbursement perspective. And that's my report.
Sounds like the states on the East Coast need to step up and resolve their own problems.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for Tim? All right, thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Next is the Chief Nursing Officer report. Mr. Gordon, welcome.
Good evening. Happy 4th of July tomorrow. So Tim touched a little bit on that opioid safe hospital self-assessments. The scoring model that we received from the entity was essentially for larger hospitals with multiple disciplines. They talked about OBGYN, they talked about a lot of different things. So what we're doing is downsizing the score sheet to kind of give ourselves a score to figure out where we're going to be able to go with our opioid safe hospital push, the initiative to get better prescribing practices. We need to know where we're at first. So that's why Dr. Finstad alluded to doing some research to find out just how many prescriptions are being written, the length of time for those prescriptions to be written, things like that. So we're gathering data on that. The CAPS committee, which is the Critical Access Hospital Patient Safety Committee, is very informed on that. And so we'll be able to then practically consider what things we can employ, like medication-assisted treatment programs, Narcan distribution, things like that we're not sure if we need to do stuff like that, but we're trying to find out if that's something that we should be looking at. As we said before, the grant application has been submitted for the CNA program. We'll get that going as soon as that. I've already started that process. Also, Dr. Finstad alluded to multiple audits being performed for several committees. That's kind of takes up a lot of my day, is doing those audits for the admission process, identifying delays to that admission process, and making sure that if there is a delay, we need to find out why, and if it was an outlier or if there's a trend, and that's kind of what I look for in that. The other thing is medication pass audits, and our education department has really stepped up to start doing those med pass audits and also mock code activity. They've also basically revamped the entire learning management system that we have to improve that and make sure that everybody who's required to do certain training and education is getting that done. The laboratory critical value reporting and documentation, along with a host of other things, is what I'm kind of looking at. As I said before, the education department's really kind of stepped up to the plate. They're doing a lot of things right now to improve the education of our facility and providing that. So that's my report.
Any questions for Mark?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Next is the Chief Financial Officer report. Mr. Beal, welcome.
I'm going to take just a minute tonight to talk about some of our operational results for the month of May. I'll start with the acute hospital. We did have a pickup there. I did a little better than we have been in some months. We actually met the same average daily census of acute patients that we had a year ago, the same month at 4.1. Our swing beds did not pick up quite to the level of the prior year, same month, but they did pick up some. We did have 0.8 patient average per day in our swing beds versus 1.3 in the prior year. Our SNF actually picked up, and I want to personally say thank you to the SNF, the energy that's been put into the intake and in the last 60 to 90 days has been significantly better, in my opinion. And as a result, actually, last year for the month of May, we had an average of 54.8 residents per day, and this year we are actually at 56.3. So we actually exceeded last year's average daily resident census. Our emergency room was, we had a really good month last year in the month of May. We had 677 visits. which is an unusually high month for us here. This year we only were able to do 594, which is pretty much a normal type month for us. But again, the comparison should be more to the average on a trend basis than that particular 1 month that was exceedingly above our norm last year. Of those patients that we saw, we admitted 4.38% versus 4.58 last year, so down slightly from that. But it was just a situation where things are moving in the right direction, especially also in the referred outpatients. Last year we had done just over 1,004 in the month of May. This year we did 1,113. A lot of that has to do with imaging services. They have a fairly significant growth mode in the last few months. We also did more observation days, which basically are outpatient, but they're counted as days, not as inpatient days, but as observation days. We did 33 versus 29 last year. In our clinic, we also saw a fairly significant increase in the primary care. We did, over the last year, we did 1,387 visits for primary care, and last year it was 1,193. For our specialty visits, that also, which is the behavioral health and some of the specialists, we also showed an increase, 305 this year in May versus 248 last year. Our surgeries were actually up. We didn't do any inpatient surgeries last year. We did one this year in May. Our outpatient surgery, we did one last year. These are non-endoscopies, okay? Just regular type surgeries. We did 4 this year of outpatient during the month of May. Our endoscopies were up. We had 53 in the month of May this year versus 48 last year. And interestingly, our prescriptions filled in the retail pharmacy were also up to 3,599 versus 3,436 last year. So in all those cases, the trend is positive. We actually generated $9.1 million in revenue in the month of May this year. It was only 8.725 last year. Of that portion that we generated this year, $2.3 million we consider as collectible. 2.4 last year, so a little bit more discounts applied this year based upon the mix of the financial classes of the patients, but still overall a significant reasonable move forward, in my opinion. And what that actually did was, as we applied a budget, that was still $449,000 below our budget. And again, on the collectible portion, because it was a little bit less than last year, as well as less than the budget. We actually, in our expenses, in our operating expenses, we did actually have less operating expense than we had last year. Last year we had 2.485 million, and this year 2.348. That's about 348,000, not quite 348,000 less than our budget as well. So operationally we made $23,000. Our budget was to make $125,000, and last year we lost $6,925 from operations. For the non-contributing items like taxes and investment income, and actually with long-term interest applied against it, we actually took away from our 23 this year by because of less money coming in from investment basically, and from the auxiliary in that particular month. We actually did 4,608 negative from our non-operating this year. The budget was to have a positive 3,637. Last year though, it was even more significantly down, so we had a negative 15,432 from non-operating. So we ended the month with $19,181 in profit. Our budget was to make 129,000, and last year for that particular month, we lost 22,000. For the year to date, we are at 262,000 loss for 11 months, and our budget, because we had some months in the prior year that were very good, was to make 1.394 million, and we had made through 11 months last year 799,000. And that's my report.
Okay, are there any questions for Chet?
Just one comment I might want to make. Again, this
Tim?
represents the operating performance of the hospital. As we know and as we've discussed in the past, you know, again, there is additional compensation that the hospital receives through our IGT program and so forth. Those funds do come in throughout the year, usually later in the year. They are not applied to our financial statements until after our audits are done. Then it's determined how much of that money is coming back into the budget. And so, again, that's an additional piece to the overall financial viability of the hospital and so forth. And so, like I said, those will show up later this year when the financial audit is done. So,
Ross?
Yeah, just wanted, I'm new to the finance committee and I'm learning a lot about the hospital finances and the parameters under which Chet must report according to the rules of the state. And the parameters that he's required to report under are very narrow, and it unfortunately doesn't tell the whole story until later in the year after the hospital's audited and all the IGT funds come in. And so the picture that's painted looking at this report is kind of scary, but the reality is the hospital's actually doing very well. And so if you look at the narrow focus of these reports, you kind of go, oh my God, we're going down. And you know, operationally, that's what the numbers are telling us. Revenue-wise, though, the hospital is actually very financially stable. So I just wanted to report the little bit that I've learned from the finance committee. It's like interesting.
Yeah, we're going along. We could be doing better.
Yeah.
And that was my statement.
Okay. Debbie, you had a question? For
Chet, when you said that you were comparing the budget, that your budget was 1 million something positive, is that with these IGT funds after the audit?
No.
Okay, so is apples and apples with where we are right now?
In a way, yes, because you see, that's why I gave the last year to date.
Right.
The last year to date, we made 800,000. Okay, normally a budget wants you to do a little better than you've done in the prior year. It likes to hope that you will. Okay, that's not what's happening, and that's why the budget's like that.
Okay. Thank you, Chet. Moving on to old business, item 1 is a medical reappointment consulting contract for Dr. Peter Newell. This is an action item. Tim?
yeah, last time this was pulled from consideration primarily because of some information we had learned with regards to just some reporting requirements for this physician. And I'm pleased to report, you know, I met with the physician. I've given him a letter, obviously indicating and reminding him of his obligations for some charting things that need to be done on patients who are transferred to other facilities. I'm pleased to report that he has responded to that, and we are now monitoring him on an ongoing basis, and he is fully compliant. So my recommendation would obviously be to move him forward for additional contracting period.
Okay.
Then I'll make the motion to approve that contract.
Okay, there's a motion to approve Dr. Newell's consulting contract by Director Elliott. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Director Bush. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, that has passed. Second item on the agenda is the CEO compensation, which we deferred to this month because we wanted some more time to look at accomplishments, and Director Elliott had sent over some comparables and list of, I think, recommended goals for the upcoming year. So I'll kind of just open it to discussion with the board. Whoever wants to go first. Or...
I'll start if it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, coming into this, you know, fairly new, I had no idea even how to analyze this, and you know, my gut, I feel that Tim's doing a really good job. And you know, over the last couple months, I am convinced that he's doing a very good job. But then, how much do you pay him? And so I did a little research on what other hospital CEOs make. I think the source that I used Transparent California, and I'm not sure it's 100% accurate. And so my report may have some numbers in it that, you know, they if we dig deeper, they may be a little off. But the criteria I use is to identify all the critical access hospitals in the state that are publicly operated, as Kern Valley Healthcare District is. I mean, there's 12 of them, including Kern Valley Hospital. And so I found out what the CEOs make in each of those hospitals, or tried to. Some of the data was old, and I applied a inflation factor to it, just for analysis purposes. But what the data showed me is that you know, if you just look at the salary we're paying our CEO, it's above the median, according to the data that I retrieved. Whether it's accurate or not is questionable. But if you look at other factors like the number of beds in the hospital, he's way underpaid. The number of employees that he's responsible for managing, he's way underpaid. And so you look at these other factors, and the actual number, I think, comes into focus a little better. And you know, in my mind, I'm convinced that he should receive a raise. You know, at least equivalent to what our successful employees are making every year. And I don't know what that is. Is that 4%? 4%?
That's our ceiling, yes.
Okay.
That's what the board approved for.
Okay. So I'm, you know, prepared to make a motion to that effect, but I don't know if it's too early to do that. I know we haven't heard from other board members, so.
We'll go to Barbara first, then we'll. Charlie has hand up first. Charlie, go ahead, and then we'll.
First of all, I want to thank Ross for doing these. This was incredibly helpful. Just for the public's knowledge too, a lot of this shows that when it just comes down to straight compensation, you might find our CEO in the top third of the comparative healthcare districts. But when it comes to beds, when it comes to full-time employees, when it comes to patients, when it comes to all this, you find him in the bottom third. So it does kind of equalize things, and it really put things in perspective to me. But I'm trusting your numbers as well. And as you say, some of the information may be a little old, but I agree with what Judy Brown said earlier tonight, that we happen to be very fortunate to have somebody who really does care about this place and puts this place above everything else. I've always felt that we are fortunate to have him, and I really think I'm in a business, my business, you know, the biggest radio station in the country might be in New York City, and I have to pay the same amount. They pay the same amount for equipment that I have to pay. It's much tougher. I need a piece of equipment, I've got to go get a loan. They find it in their lobby couch. That said, I'm just saying that when you task somebody with running a larger operation with as many facets as we have in this healthcare district, and under the conditions that we work under, being isolated like this and not having direct access to a major metropolitan area, which makes it difficult to attract not only physicians, but nurses, et cetera, workers in general, I think he's done a magnificent job. And I will also echo what Ross had said about the financials as well. We can look at it as a disparity over what was budgeted and where we actually ended up, but it's not over yet. We don't have the total picture yet. And when we look ahead to the total picture, it actually looks quite good. So I, too, just voice my opinion that I'm in favor of the increase in compensation.
Okay. Director Parks?
You're gauging 4%. The other employees, as you state, are getting, they deserve 4% more than he deserved 4% from what I've seen. When I first came on board, I asked him to give us a written report on what he's going to do about skilled nursing because we're losing money in it. We never have. And he agreed to do it, and he's, to this date, he still hasn't done it. So there's things that he's wasted money on with the HR problems that we're having. He's a good guy and he's a good CEO, but he's not performing to where he should get a raise this year from the way I look at it. And again, I'm not sure that you looked at how much the other employees are getting paid, the nurses and every other employee, in relation to the rest of the hospital.
Yeah, that was a part of what I looked at. Certainly, it was not.
I might ask.
So that would have been something to look at if you're comparing their raise to what they get. I think they deserve a lot more than he does.
If we're talking about it's apples and apples, actually, because it's 4%, you know, whether you're down here and you go 4% or whether you're up here and you go 4%, it's all relative. Everybody is given the same opportunity to perform and be evaluated and earn that 4%. So comparing what our CEO makes with other CEOs is really the only fair comparison. You can't compare with what he makes with what the average worker or another administrator here in the hospital makes.
Management is well paid. The rest of the employees is probably either even or underpaid. So there can be a balance.
We actually do pay a little bit better than most districts in our state.
I want to thank Ross for doing this report. This is the first time in my 28 years of being here that we have had this type of a report that can show and prove that our executive officer is underpaid. When you look at the stats on and what is required, what is expected on licensing of the beds and the bed days and the patient revenue and the employees, and I might add a note in here, we do not determine what the employees make. That's up to the CEO. It's our job as a board to appoint the CEO. That's our job. To appoint the best one that we can for this area and to make sure that he accomplishes what is expected in the area of his expertise, which he has enormous experience in running healthcare districts. This is the first time we've ever had this kind of a report to make a determination and to weigh one thing against the other. And when I started reading this, I thought, that's a lot of money. But when I stop and think about that we used to gross $28 million a year, we're now grossing over $100 million a year. That's an enormous amount of money. The fact that we don't get to use all that money is not our problem here. It's the government's. Because the government takes that much back. We don't get to count all of that. When I looked at this and I weighed the whole thing and I saw that in comparison to the other districts that are around this area and smaller, much smaller, this hospital is doing a lot of business. This hospital deserves someone like Tim. When I look at what 3% is or 4%, and the fact that he does travel from out of town because he needs to be at a different area for his son. So that's why Tim doesn't live here right on the doorstep like all the rest of us do. In all my years, we've never had anything like this to weigh a raise or to deny a raise or anything like this. And when I see the comparisons that Ross has done, and like I said, I had no idea that you measured compensation according to operating revenue, according to the number of employees, according to patient revenue, and according to the amount of beds, and also licensed beds. This means that those beds have to be kept licensed, and they have to be proved to be well run. I've gone to many conferences for ACHD, for healthcare districts and so on. I have listened to what goes on at those conferences, and I have heard other people from other districts kiddingly say, how do you think we can rob them of him? And I'm not kidding. He is a valuable employee. He has a lot of irons in the fire. We have a lot of irons in the fire here. If we're able to do all of the things that are on this list right now in the year 2020, we probably are going to be looked at, and the whole state of California is at least something is a success here in this state of California. And I am very, very proud to have worked with Tim. It is a big decision when you see these stats to know that it isn't always how things are run that takes the money back that we get. It's what the state is doing and how things are being done out there. We do, and we have that experience here to keep more of it every year. Tim and his executive staff are working for this all the time. That's all I have to say about that, about how we measure whether he gets a raise or not. I know how many years he's turned it down because of the way the stats looked. I can remember how many years he's turned it down. I can remember a lot of other CEOs that were here that didn't have the caliber that got paid as much money.
How many years did he turn it down? How many years did he turn it down?
How many years?
Yeah, you said
28
you
years.
remember.
28 years I've been here.
No. He
Anyway,
did-
go ahead and make your motion.
No, I would,
I'm going to,
John?
yes,
Could I
Mark.
say something?
Yeah.
So,
John, I'd like to say something.
I've been here 27 years. I've had a lot of CEOs, none better than what I work with today.
right.
So with his dedication that I've seen, that I've worked with, just simply the way he manages us, Bob's going to probably comment too, it gives us good feedback on how we perform our jobs. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Smart, Bob.
I'm Bob Easterday. I'm the manager of plant operations for the hospital. I've worked here only 4 years, but I've worked 28 years in healthcare. and I have worked directly for a number of CEOs over the years, and Tim is head and shoulders above any CEO I've ever worked for. A couple weeks ago, I was really struggling with this FEMA application, the Cal OES. Was just horrible, and I could not make the FEMA program work, and I couldn't get the benefit cost analysis to come out right. And I just went to Tim and I says, I don't know what to do. And he just came out to my office. We sat down and we talked it through and we worked all the issues out. And I don't know anybody else who would have done that. So.
Thank you, Bob.
Nobody's saying Tim is not a great CEO. We're looking at his pay level and where he's at, and if he deserves a raise or not. There's no question he's a good CEO.
Don't know that he could replace him.
Scott is the public allowed to?
Oh, yeah, this will
Okay.
be an action item for the board.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, public, can speak for 3 minutes, yeah.
Yes, please, if
Yeah.
you don't mind.
It won't take 3 minutes. I don't think.
My name is Jeannie Bejarano. I'm a pink lady. I'm obviously relatively new. However, I've dealt with hospitals since the mid-60s, KMC, Memorial, Mercy Southwest, Health Career Academies at East High, which is a tutorial. It's an actual academy where the students will go to the hospitals and get training and therefore I have met and dealt with CEOs for probably most of my life in one way or another. First and foremost, the success that I have seen with this hospital is proof right here from what I'm hearing. You have a financial gain. Listening to you speak over the years, we have increased $75 million or something over the years, if I'm understanding correctly. You have a staff where I can attest as patients, my husband and myself, in dealing with hospitals. Now, I know the CEO does not go to the house and say, okay, this is what you're going to do today when you have all these people working for you. But you are looked at as responsible for the good staff that you have. The years that I have lived here, and the several times I have been here, and my husband and I both been admitted here, not one time, and I'm talking about life and death situations, not one time was there a negative situations, comment, or anything. Does it happen? I'm sure it must. We're people. But the respect that I have seen in comparison to the different CEOs that I've worked with, know about, talked about, I see nothing but good. For people to, not the board so much, of course the board is important, but for people that are not on the board to come up and speak, knowing what this community's attitude is with a lot of things, must hold some merit and weight to your decisions. Again, are we perfect? Absolutely not. But if you have an issue with one area, or maybe 2, even 3 out of 100 perhaps, should that be influential enough to negate a positive outcome for someone who I have seen work very hard, deals with the public very well, and is responsible for a staff that is awesome, who cares. And again, I've not seen one negative thing in the years that I've lived here. So I personally say, okay, if there's issues, deal with them, but don't deny something that's going to keep him here representing something, something so positive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Scott, was it okay to talk about accomplishments or goals for Tim for the upcoming year too during this, or is it just strictly just the raise?
So I think in determining whether or not the CEO deserves a raise, you can discuss any factors that would play into that consideration. So if it's goals, if it's accomplishments, whatever the board is taking into consideration is fair game for discussion.
Okay. Well, one of the things that Tim and I worked on this year was well, actually, he did print out the 2019 accomplishments. Several of the things that we wanted to resolve, which pretty much have been resolved, were issues regarding the employee claims was one issue. Of course, this whole issue with the seismic is still in progress, and if we get that grant, it'll hopefully help this hospital where we probably won't have to go do another general obligation bond again. I mean, those are two big issues. I mean, there's a lot of them on here, but I know those were two issues that were of concern to me after I became chairman. And then we also talked about goals for moving forward, which, and I do agree with you, Gene, that the issue with the SNF, that does need to be worked on, and I believe that is in this upcoming year, is to get that turned around. That has to be turned around. So I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about the goals or.
It seems 4% same side, maybe even cost of living, which is 1 point, what did Social Security get? 1.5?
Sorry?
A raise on Social Security, was it 1.5 or something like that?
Last year? I don't remember exactly, to be honest with you.
May I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I just want to say that, there's a very sincere outpouring from people that don't know him that well and people who know him very well. And I use a lot of metaphors in my life. I hate to see us break up the band, and I will do anything that I need to do to make sure that, when you're successful enough that you put together a family of people that run their departments, and you have somebody who cares as much as our CEO does, you can't ask for more. He's put together a family of people that know each other, come to respect one another, and he respects them. He doesn't stand above anybody. And for that reason, I would do anything I could if we were in dire straits financially. I understand, but I would do anything I could to keep everybody together and give him whatever it takes to make sure that he retires from this place.
What is his compensation?
It's right here.
Well, Transparent California is reporting it at a certain dollar amount, and Jen says that's not it. It's lower than that.
It's much lower.
Yeah.
That's benefits and anything.
Yeah, okay, but that's compensation, benefits too.
Yes.
No, Transparent California is older and it's not. What is he getting paid? We should know that. I mean, it's public information.
Chet, do you know his salary?
The exact amount?
Yeah, not including
And this
benefits.
does have, I think, the 27% benefits in it, so, I believe where he is at right now is, I wanna say two.
I think he's gonna go get it.
Oh, he's gonna get it?
What's
That's okay, it'll work.
What's the 27% benefits? What is that?
What is that? That's, basic, it's the vacation, holiday, and sick. It's FICA, employer FICA, employer matching disability, it's
Social Security, probably.
pension plan, if matching that we actually have to do, if he puts in money, that's only if he puts in money, and he does. It's the portion that we actually have for medical insurance. It's the employer component of their medical insurance. It's the employer component of their dental insurance. I go down the line, but actually, if I went back, if you remember the board, I gave them a percentage, and I actually had the line items in there. of what was FICA and what was each one of the items there. And that's why I do that, that's for the budget, so that you can tell what those percentages are.
So a nurse, a regular employee, would they be getting the same 27% in benefits?
Yes, yeah, the answer is yes. You cannot differentiate. If you can have a special plan, if the board approves one for higher paid employees, but we don't have one.
Okay, it's 274,643.
That's
There you go.
without the benefits.
Right.
Just salary.
That's just salary.
That's his base rate.
Okay, so what's 27% more?
I have to get a calculator.
I would too, because that's okay.
Did you say 27?
Yes, that's percentages.
So that's what we,
Seventy-
you know, it's year to
73,
date.
yeah.
75,
Yeah, 74.
74
Yeah.
additional.
Okay, so what, I'm sorry, but what does that come out to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I get it.
I forgot what the initial number was.
I hate my calculator.
347.
Okay, so
74,
total
70.
compensation is 379, or 349?
347.
Okay, so total compensation is 347.
I just,
And did you look at that? Is that what, you were looking at his total compensation? Or they don't go by?
That data source I had just gave the one number.
Okay.
the actual data that Director Elliott had in was
It seems like,
17,000 more
like
than.
everybody wants to give him a raise.
So,
The
yes.
question, how much? Do we have to do it? Are you stuck on 4%?
It's up to whatever the board
4%
decides.
is based on the base salary, not the compensation.
Right.
Can I,
Yeah.
is it appropriate for me to go back and make my motion that I want to make? And we
wants
could
to.
vote on it?
Yeah.
So, in my mind, and I'm very comfortable with the fact that he is a skilled leader, the hospital is successful right now. I think he should be fairly compensated at 4%, which is what everybody else who's a successful employee is getting. So that,
Now, what would
make
that
the
bring
motion
him
for
up,
that.
would that bring him up to at
Yes.
356 or 349?
4% more than what he's
more.
making now, whatever that is.
It's.
Well, how much is it? 4% of 274?
It's a raise of about 35,000, is that right? 30 to 35?
It's not what I'm coming up with.
Don't forget that that's 2018 also. These stats are 2018, not 19.
It's only 11,000.
So that's
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. So it'd be
2
11,
years
so
behind.
it'd be 11 added to.
11,000, okay, yeah, so, a lot of that. Yeah. Plus, I have to add to the, excuse me, Ross, but, to attract and put together the administrative team that we have with Chet's level of experience and knowledge, Mark, none better, Bob, I don't know, you were doing drugs when you signed up or something. But, I mean, when Bob was brought on board, I was just like, whoa, because I knew of his background. I was so happy. You know, some of us are up here, I mean, it's because of, I certainly don't live here for the money, you know, I live here for the lifestyle. And, again, I reiterate what Director Elliott says, is that we're doing well. There is no reason to deny it, in my opinion.
Okay, so we're just a little bit out of order because there was a motion, but it does need a second.
Who made the motion?
Director Elliott made the
Okay,
motion.
I second.
Okay, there's a motion by Director Elliott, and there's a second. Is there, now we can go into discussion on the motion.
We
Is there
can
any
still have more discussion.
If there is any, is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Anyone? Is there, are you abstaining, Director Bush?
No,
Or- I'm sorry. I
It's
didn't-
quiet, aye.
Oh,
I've spoken softly around him.
okay, that has passed,
What did you vote?
yes.
Okay.
Well, that's 4.
Can you give us an effective date, just so we're clear here?
Does it matter?
Is this based on a higher date?
He does have an anniversary date, yes. It's in June.
There are some other requirements that have to be done as far as physical, certain classes or courses that other employees are required to complete before.
But
So
so,
it can be retroactive back to when they
Anniversary
completed their
date.
responsibilities.
Back to the anniversary, higher anniversary.
Provided that they've completed all their responsibilities. yes.
correct.
Does
So-
he have any of those?
He has all the same ones that any other employee would do.
Okay.
Physical, TB test,
Okay.
all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so should we do a separate motion with the date? Is that necessary, Scott?
Well,
So, yeah, so I think Chet's right, you need an effective date, and it sounds like it would either be, in the board's discretion, of course, the anniversary date or the date upon which his employment requirements are fulfilled, whichever is later.
And it's around, it's sometime the first part of June, if I'm not mistaken.
His actual anniversary date is June 12th. So that's the furthest it would go back.
Okay, so I'll make that as a motion then, that the raise be effective at his anniversary date or the completion of his personnel requirements, whichever's later.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Elliott for the anniversary date. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second.
Second by Director Bush. Any other discussion?
Who determines the the criteria?
Human resources.
would
Okay,
verify those.
okay.
There's a checklist that goes to the personnel committee.
Okay.
You've noticed that checklist? It's on there.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'm glad we agreed on everything.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. Okay, we'll have to bring Tim back for the resolution.
Would you like me to explain it while we're waiting for him?
Yeah, please.
All right, and I think Chad or maybe Bob can jump in as well. Part of the deal with the FEMA grant is that the district has to contribute 25%.
25%.
And so what this resolution does is it sets aside in a special reserve account an amount equal to 25% of the grant, total grant cost. And the resolution specifies that the monies can only be used for grant purposes unless for some reason the grant does not go through, in which case the money reverts back to the district's general fund. And this is simply, I don't know if this is the last step or another step or where we are in the FEMA process, but this is another step in complying with the grant requirements.
Correct. It is not, we're not there yet.
Okay, yep, so
The
this,
application does require us to agree that we will pay the 25%.
yeah.
So we're talking about 4.8.
Almost 4.9.
It's 25% of 19,217,000.
4,818,000.
And I believe the resolution has the amount.
4,818,000. And, yeah, where we're at is obviously our notice of intent was approved. We were approved to do the sub-application. The application is in. They do not give a time frame on which they're going to respond. But the deadline for applications is July 5th, 2 days. So that's the status of it, and that's.
And I understand the county submitted this on our behalf.
Yes, there is a,
Supervisor.
all funds from Cal OES have to go to a hazard mitigation district. And Kern County has a hazard mitigation program. And in that, it has 4 pages of listed entities in the county that are covered by the program. And none of the hospitals in the county are listed. So because we are not listed in the hazard mitigation plan, then the plan has to be submitted by the county. And so the Board of Supervisors voted last week to submit for us. And so there was documents that went back and forth, signed by Tim and Chet and Scott and whatnot with the county. And so they technically are the submitters.
Was it
And
unanimous?
it was a unanimous vote by the supervisors, yes.
And it's 100% pass through the county. There's no funds retained by the
No funds are
county.
received by them.
Good.
And yeah, anyway, so, we got our hopes up that this is gonna work.
If there was a need, could we untype our funds?
Excuse me?
Could we reverse what we did at another board meeting? Just if we needed.
You mean in the future? Yeah. I mean, well, again, I think
Yes.
the nature of this is, yes, you
Okay.
can do that.
Yeah.
It's, this is really only tying these up
Right.
until we hear about the grant. If the grant goes through, then obviously we need that to make the match.
The grant
If
doesn't go
not-
through, this automatically says it reverts anyway.
Right, exactly. So it goes back in.
But if the grant goes too far and just, we don't get word for years, they can move.
That's correct.
Yes.
You
That's
can.
correct.
You can make that decision
We
if you
can
want.
reverse it.
Yeah.
And we don't have to read the whole resolution, do we?
You don't. You can waive the reading and to pass it by motion.
Is the board okay with waiving reading the whole
Yes.
resolution? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll need a motion to approve resolution number
I'll make a
1902.
motion to approve.
Okay, it's moved by Director Parks. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Director Cassis. And we'll do a roll call since it's a resolution. Heidi?
Director Bush,
Yes.
Director Parks,
Yes.
Director Cassis,
Yes.
Director Elliott,
Yes.
Director White.
Yes. Okay, resolution number 1902 has passed. Thank you. Director's comments not appearing on the agenda. We'll start with Director Elliott first and we can move our way down if you have anything.
I'm so pleased about learning more about what's going on at the hospital. I've always had a good feeling about what's going on here, but actually getting to learn the details and seeing the accomplishments that the incredible workforce here and our volunteers make happen at this incredible facility is just overwhelming. I'm so impressed with the Kern Valley Hospital and the district, and all of the great things that we're doing to serve this community. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Elliott. Director Bush?
I would like to say, through the wisdom of our chairman and the rest of the board, much as I have great respect for our CEO for gathering such a great administrative team, I congratulate this board on getting somebody like Ross Elliott on the board. So I'm very thankful to have him here. And the only other thing is off topic, and I hope I would like to take a moment to recognize somebody who gave a lot to this district for several years, was very passionate about it. That's Dave Durham. We miss him, and I just thought his name should be brought up as a great contributor to this healthcare district and as a great citizen of the valley.
Thank you, Charlie.
So many years.
Thank you, Charlie.
Dave Durr did put a lot of effort. He did some great stuff. And I never read anything about anything he ever said. I just didn't. And a few people told me he said something, but as far as I'm concerned, he was a great guy. I have no idea about what was said or anything else. So a few people think I know. I don't know anything about what he wrote. So, and everything about, we didn't agree, but maybe he was right, maybe I was right, but that doesn't change the fact that he was a great guy. So.
Okay. Director Cassis?
I would just like to say that I'm pretty sure that most of this information that we've used tonight is available to the public if they would like to see what was used and what the measure was, all of the guidelines that are with other hospitals. No?
Someone mentioned the
Maybe, I don't know.
didn't
You'll
see
have to
those
talk
in
to
board
the man down at the end.
Is that in the board packet? Okay,
Tim
that's not-
also
Okay.
has given us fiscal year 2019 accomplishments and recommended goals and for 2020. I would just like to say, Tim, that if there's anything I can do in my caliber as a director to help you achieve this, I will appreciate you letting me know.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. And the only comment that I wanted to make, I want to reiterate about David Durr. He was on this board for a number of years and was chairman for 8, I believe. I'm very sorry to hear what happened. I have only thoughts and prayers for his family. I would like to see if maybe the foundation could do some kind of a memorial thing on, was it the Tree of Life in the lobby or something like that? If the foundation would be.
It's over by the SNF.
Okay.
It's a great idea.
If maybe the foundation could do something like that down the road, that would really be nice.
I think we could put that on our agenda for next.
Well, the hospital can certainly authorize that to be done.
Okay.
Or the board can ask that be done on behalf of the hospital. That could be done.
Okay. And just wanted to, again, thank the public for coming out, and happy 4th of July. And that's all I have to say.
Happy birthday, America.
With that, we're adjourned at 7:30. Thank you.
Safe holiday for everybody.
See you by the river.
So now that all the board members have this for a public session item, these are essentially public, right?
Yeah.
Is that okay to
Do you
explain
know
to
any of
Debbie?
these names?
Okay.
Yeah.